Welcome to Wake and Jake. We appreciate you guys kind of rolling out of bed and being with us here each Monday morning to chop it up, talk through everything coming up for the week. We're going to cover hot projects, macro outlooks, everything in between. But as with all MVHQ productions, the show is rated NFA for not financial advice. Always do your own research and make your own financial decisions. Like usual, me and Jake are going to lead the conversation. We've got some topics, but we're more than happy to hear your voice and your opinion. So feel free to unmute and jump in if you have any questions or just a take that you want to share on any of this stuff. But yeah, Jim, everybody, Jake, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Yeah, it's beautiful Monday here. The markets are very green, which is awesome to see. Bitcoin's been ripping. We'll touch on that a bit, obviously. I had a good weekend myself too. I know people have already talked about it briefly before this, but we got engaged this weekend, so super excited about that. Now it's kind of like a weight off my chest. I've been kind of preparing for it for a while now, and it's nice to not have to like keep the surprise anymore. Got to roll into wedding planning now, but regardless, pretty excited about that. So overall, pretty awesome weekend with markets green and the engagement and all that stuff. Super Bowls yesterday. Didn't really care about that, honestly. Didn't really care who won. So yeah, excited to dig in here and get back to work.
Wow, congratulations, man. Yeah, W's in chat for Jake and Bake, somehow managing a portfolio and a relationship. Big W's all around. Good luck on the wedding planning. It's going to be a logistical nightmare trying to figure out how to get all of these MVHQ members to the wedding, but I think you'll figure it out. I got faith in you.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough.
All right. Well, I'm going to kick us off here just with some sort of MVHQ announcements. That is kind of, at the end of the day, the thread that holds us all together here. So it applies to everyone here, whether you're bullish or bearish on the market or whatever. I'm sure we're all bullish on MVHQ. So first thing, we have an upcoming AMA that you're not going to want to miss tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. This is with Based VC. Based VC is an investment fund. You may remember them. They're leading our Gunzilla investment and hopefully many more to come in the future. But tune in tomorrow to get some inside information on how our partnership's going to work. And if we're lucky, maybe some alpha on some future investment opportunities. So yeah, that's it for just events for tomorrow. But man, yeah, I'm so excited for this next part. It is a fantastic time to be an MVHQ member. I want to talk about the app. The fucking app, it's going crazy. So I just want to put some quick metrics for you guys, just so you can kind of see why I'm so elated. We've got over 2.6 million mints on our previous two missions. These are on Barachain and Blast. We are over 70,000 registered users on the website. Our daily active users are over 15,000. And that last bullet point of the daily active users, this is ancient data from 2 days ago. Things are moving fast, so that number is probably very outdated. But wow, holy shit. So the Blast and the Barachain, they're both testnet mints, so it's not a direct revenue driver, but it does show the potential for our app and our team to secure these high-level partners and build relationships with emerging blockchains. On top of that, it shows the strength of our dev team because we've been able to welcome this like massive surge of volume with open arms instead of 404 errors and the website crashing. So just further reassurance, our product is killing it, filling the needs of the market. We're beyond excited to continue cooking up missions for you guys that are going to capture the attention of Web3 and also benefit our members and company. If you haven't used the platform yet, please go give it a try. It's much like Galaxy or Alphabot, but like the cooler uncle. We've got 7 total missions active at the moment. 2 of these are going to end in the next 2 days. You're going to earn points for each of the objectives and missions that you complete. And once these missions are gone, they are gone, along with the points that come with them. So go sign up if you've been waiting or just haven't had your head in the sand or haven't seen it. Definitely go play around, give it a try. The thruster mission ends in 16 hours. So go maybe knock that one out first. And then the Galverse mission ends in a little over 24 hours. So knock those out. Don't miss the points. But yeah, I had to give a big shout out to our app, man. It's been crazy. The success has been wild over the past 2 weeks. Really, last week has been explosive, but I'm sure you guys are seeing it too. Anything you wanted to add there, Jake?
No, that was an awesome summary. Pretty awesome. Pretty insane. The millions of mints, like you said, it is testnet. It's not like we're making an insane amount of money from all these mints, but it's the fact that we can grow in terms of awareness and like testing out the platform, because this is a test. After all, this is like our alpha version. We're not even to Top Shot beta level yet. And we're getting this kind of attraction. The platform's held up awesomely, and the team's learning a lot still, and continuing to improve like we always will. So pretty pumped. Thank you all for supporting us. I know a lot of MVHQ members have been slamming that mint button. So hopefully we get some nice things for this bear chain thing, especially. I know they're pretty excited. I think they haven't even really hyped up their marketing machine or the mint, and we're still at 1.7 million, which is crazy to think about. And neither is Blast yet either. So a lot more cool mints to come. We're gonna do it regularly on Wednesdays. It's kind of like the current cadence of like new missions. So look out for Wednesday when we drop more and more missions on the platform. Thanks y'all for supporting.
Yes, sir. Well said. Yeah, fantastic time to be an MVHQ member. And I've got another reason for it as well. So we're actually here for it right now. So Wake and Jake, I think we may now be officially, potentially the highest EV morning show in Web3. And it's exclusive to MVHQ members. You guys are here for it. I was doing a bit of a retrospective because we've been doing it for a month now. This is episode 5. We're doing it weekly, and holy shit, are we batting 1,000? Like the goal is for us to suss through kind of everything that's going on and bring you the most important stuff. And I think we've met and exceeded that goal. Just a quick little recap of a couple projects that we've covered extensively. D's Nuts, Quantum Cats, ERC 404, Yaka Finance, Pizza Ninjas. The list goes on. But all of these have done very well after we covered them, even the ones that were post-mint like D's Nuts and ERC 404. So not trying to ride our nuts too hard here. A little bit of a pat on the back. But yeah, mostly just flowers here for our fearless leader, Jake and Bake, guiding us through the Web3 space, keeping a level head and finding the big narratives. So thank you, sir. We're here to cook. We've been cooking, so we're gonna continue to try to do that for you guys. So I just wanted to shout that out real quick. Jake, I guess we can go ahead and pick on one of these narratives and go ahead and get things kicked off and tap into your brain a little bit. I guess we could start kind of zoomed out, macro. Do you have any macro thoughts that you want to walk us through? How are the markets looking?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good call, first of all. On the I didn't even realize until you brought it up to me before the show, kind of like how much the stuff we've talked about has been pumping like crazy. I don't know if that's like a realistic expectation. But it's been great so far. I think it also kind of shows where we are in the market. Like there's so many opportunities still, even if you think you missed out, if it's like a novel thing, and important enough to really touch on, there's still more legs to go, with how strong the market is right now. So, I think it's just an overall positive sign that there's a lot of opportunities out there right now. Hopefully, we'll have, at least one other thing, that we touch on today. I have a mint that I'm actually very excited for this week that we can touch on a little bit later. That will hopefully continue the trend of us our really good batting record here. But yeah, let's talk about Bitcoin for first of all. We're, oh my gosh, yeah, we're like 100 away right now from 50K. Insane. I think it's more than 3x kind of from the lows where we were in the peak bear market. Even just this morning, in the past few hours, we've pumped from under 48K, so we're up almost 2K basically just in a couple hours. Market's ripping. If you zoom out a little bit more, just in the past week, I think last week we were hovering around like 42.5, and we're absolutely ripping. This is I think this is very much a large part of the ETFs. I think you look at the data and it's very hard to ignore. It's very hard to ignore that this is where it's coming from. I'm going to post a chart here in BC links. That's where we're going to be posting everything. So people who are listening to this show can kind of go back and have to try and search through Voice Hangout. It'll be a little easier in VC links. I'll post this one in Voice Hangout as well, though, too, because it's pretty insane. I posted it a little earlier today. But if you check it out, this is the Bitcoin ETF inflow chart, inflow versus outflows, and these numbers here on the side, this graph, this is in millions. So you can see kind of in the beginning, the first when the ETFs first came out in the beginning of January there, about a month ago or so. We've had about a month of data now. It first started out, there's a huge influx, right? And then the GBTC selling started, and they were selling around like 500 a day for the first week and a half or so. And then you can see that those black bars, those are all the GBTC selling. You can see the trend. It's slowing down. It's slowing and slowing. While the inflows started slowing as well, and then recently in the past week, last week, the inflows started ramping up back in a huge way. A lot new attention, while the outflows were continuing to slow down. So we see a very big discrepancy now in the amount of money coming into the system, the amount of money buying Bitcoin. I mean, this is over like 500 million, 400 million, 500 million in net inflows a day of buying Bitcoin. So those are big numbers. Those will push the price up. We saw it again today very clearly. I'm not sure what the data is today. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it's going to be a big number based on what the price is doing. I think we're seeing a bit of a supply shock too. Like I think the ETFs, I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are. I think last time I saw it was around like 4 or 5% of the total supply of Bitcoin is already in the ETFs. And that's gaining kind of rapidly. So we're seeing a bit of a supply shock. Of circulating supply of Bitcoin out there that these ETFs are buying up, which means if price exceeds demand like that, and there's not a supply, that means prices are demand exceeds supply like that, and that means price is gonna go up rapidly, right? So I think personally, I think I'm very bullish. I continue to be bullish. We also, as I'm talking right now, we just hit 50K. Bitcoin, which is fucking awesome that we just hit that as we're talking about it. I'm going to keep going if we keep pumping. Really, really incredible mark. Honestly, I think because of this too, I was already going to touch on this, but it's great timing that it happened. But I think with us hitting Bitcoin as well, I think that's a huge psychological number for a lot of retail people outside of the Bitcoin world, outside the crypto world, that are seeing Bitcoin like, they see like, Bitcoin's 50K now. Like that's like something to pay attention to now. It's not like it was like, it's been a long time since the previous bull market, right? It's been years since it's been up there, and people kind of ignored it and forgot about it. But now if you're seeing these headlines, especially with how much it's pumped in so recently with the ETFs combined, and now it's 50K, they're seeing headlines, Bitcoins of 50K now. I think it's going to be FOMO time now for a lot of institutional people, for a lot of people outside of the crypto world, seeing these prices, and they're going to want to get in on the action and not miss out, because we're less than 20K now away from the previous all-time high of Bitcoin. I think we can get to that mark honestly pretty fast. From here, especially if these inflows keep happening. I think this chart that I posted is probably the most important chart in crypto right now. I would say it definitely is, at least in my personal opinion. Just monitoring this, if this trend continues, where these inflows are largely outpacing these outflows, which the outflows only have so much to outflow, right? At some point, like there's not going to be any to really come out from. There will be, but it won't be like forced selling, I should say. So I think it's just kind of a matter of time that this is happening, and that chart's going to be something that I would strongly encourage monitoring if you kind of want to stay up to date on where the market's going. I think if we continue this trend, then prices are going to continue to go up too. Obviously, not financial advice, but the numbers are there. They're kind of widely obvious. So yeah, man, it's a great time. It's a great time to be alive. What can I say?
Wow, man, I love it when you talk bullish to us. Everybody, you can just skip the coffee. Jake's going to get your heart rate pumping with his Bitcoin takes here. This chart's really interesting. I've never seen a chart like this, so I'm not, it took me a second to figure out how to read it, but good God, it looks so bullish, man. It looks like Grayscale's running out of steam. So yeah, that's phenomenal. And you couldn't have timed that crossing 50K any better than with that monologue. Absolutely beautiful. It's a great shout too about retail. Yeah, that's another great consideration. Is this is all financial institutions that are stacking up, getting their inflows. So retail comes in once the news is talking about it. Once all of your coworkers are asking you crypto questions again, and that's near all time high levels. So great shout. Okay, so any other macro takes? Anybody want to jump in? Anybody got any Bitcoin takes or anything like that, or anything else to add to the bullish, or maybe a convoice here to get us out of euphoria? Open to any and all takes here before we move on to the next topic. All right, Jake has spoken. Nobody's going to fight against that, man. Okay, cool. I want to move on and jump right. You teased us a little bit there, Jake, with the hot project that's coming up, and it's kind of distracting me. I can't think about anything else. So let's go ahead and go into our what's burning segment. This is going to be top sort of thing to keep your eye on this week as far as projects or mints go. So hit us with it, Jake. What do you got?
Yeah, I think the most exciting one to me is going to be the Marms. I don't know if we've pinged out these a lot less opportunities here in chat. A good amount. AI has been doing a great job of pinging out those time sensitive, but it's gonna be these cute little marmots that are gonna be what I'm looking at here. I just posted a link to their Twitter and VC linked up if anyone's unaware of this project. But they're called Soul Marms. They're on Solana this week. It's gonna mint on Thursday, February 15th. I think Magic Eden's going to be the launch pad for them. It should be a 2.25 Sol to mint and 5,555 supply with 555 going to treasury. So like effectively circulating supply about 5K on these little marmots. So several, I guess, reasons why I'm excited for this one. One, I know founders of this project from another group I'm in, Solo Rose, which is kind of like a private little free group, not really alpha group, but like I guess like collection of people who are in the space that Cough Drop runs. And basically, I know that they're very well connected. I know that like a lot of whales are planning on buying a good amount of these marmots. They've been like posting about this project for months now, and people are pretty excited about it. And honestly, I really like the art. I think it's like it kind of reminds me of it's like especially with pudgies popping off. I think it helps a ton. It's the cute art, right? Where if pudgies pop off, we see this a lot in NFTs. Whatever pops off as like the main thing, like whatever their theme is. We see a lot of other stuff running as well as kind of like beta plays to it. And I could see Marms being that, even though they're on Sol and not ETH, but they're in a similar fashion where they're a cute little animal PFP. The mint 2 Sol, I mean, honestly, I don't think that's a lot at all. I think they'll easily be above that on secondary, especially if I think public will probably be pretty tough to mint. So I would say, I mean, we're already seeing like if you go to the over the counter waitlist marketplaces like Exaverse's Discord. I think there's some other ones. I can't remember if whales you can do NFTs on whales or not. But the whitelists are selling for about 2 to 3 Sol per. So that would put with the mint, that would put like floor price at like 4 to 5 Sol after mint, right? If you went by what current over the market rates are for these Marms. So that being said, like if whitelists are selling for that much pretty consistently, I expect them to at least be over mint come public time. So, it's kind of a combination of these things. I think they've shown that they've gotten really good engagement on socials as well. We've seen a lot of big influencers. They're doing the classic. They're doing some honoraries for influencers, but they're also doing honoraries for some lesser known people too. But they're friends with like I know Papa, our own Papa has got one of his own honoraries. Marm as well, and they're doing some like funny ones too that I like. They've done like a Tiger King one, and like they've done like I forgot which wrestler it was. I think maybe it was like Randy Savage or something like that. They did one of, but there's some funny ones. I think the traits look really good. I think the art looks really good, and I can just see the hype behind it. Like I've seen even outside of the group I'm in, in the wider Solana ecosystem. It's certainly one of the biggest ones that people are looking forward to. I've seen like some tier lists, go around. They get a bunch of engagement on like what's the best upcoming Solana projects, and the Marms have like consistently been in like the top tier for them. So I think it's a combination of that, and then we kind of can see demand in this mechanic that they launched already. It's called Marmaville. It's I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen it because we pinged it out in time sensitive a couple times already. And I know a lot of MVHQ people have tried for it, and some people have gotten it, thankfully. But it's basically like this. It's similar to like if anyone did like the Bankman slot machines. It's kind of like in a similar fashion. Basically, is like you spin for an attempt to get it like an allow list. So it's they basically sold like 500 tickets at a time or so for like 0.1 sold per ticket, and then you use that ticket to spin a wheel, and then it's like a 1 in 4 chance of getting an allow list spot. And then losers get like a wall. It's called like a Walmart ticket or token or whatever, and you can exchange 5 of those to spin a different wheel to get either, and you'll guarantee to get like something free, like like they have a bunch of like physical products like merch of their own that they did with Marmot, which is another brand, as well as like a Saga phone and like some Yeti water balls and stuff like that. So I just thought it was novel that they actually created something ahead of time, which is always good to see. I know Bankman did that too, but Bankman was also, in my opinion, like incredibly cringe and poorly run outside of just this thing that they created. But I think this is a different situation. I think it's smart because it kind of gives awareness of the project ahead of time. Like I think it helped even in MVHQ. People didn't really know about this project, but since we pinged out, hey, like this is a chance to get this allow list tickets and stuff, then a lot of more people found out about it. I think it obviously has gotten pinged out in other groups too. So it just helps kind of build up hype for it. At the same time, is like it's smart to like give the project a little bit extra income going into the mint if they need to like pay people ahead of time, like artists and such. Or whatever contracts, things like that. And then honestly, I think I've seen the founder talk about it, but like he could actually sell this to like other projects and like potentially like give like a portion, like if the other project does it, you get like a portion of tickets to like Marm holders or something like that. So, because it's a novel thing that they created. So I think there's a lot going for the project. And I personally will be going in on it, not financial advice. But I think it's certainly one to keep on your radar, even though Soul stuff has been a bit lackluster lately, with people kind of rotating to a lot of Bitcoin stuff popping off and good amount of ETH stuff popping off too. But I think regardless, it's a low enough price point to where it'll probably do pretty well.
Beautiful. Wow. What a great rundown. That was, it was really extensive. I don't have much to add on the Marms personally. I think I tried to spin their wheel and it just like wouldn't, like it said not enough tokens or something, like it wouldn't let me spin with Phantom. So I kind of just like tried a few times and gave up, which means it'll probably cook. It's probably going to send. But no, appreciate the shouts. Yeah, I've been seeing the pings and stuff. I know there's quite a few people who are hip to it and are discussing it now in voice hangout chat. If anybody has any other, I guess, information or alpha or any other things to consider with Marms, I would very much love to hear somebody else's voice and just help save Jake's breath a little bit. Let him catch his breath, get a drink of water. I'm gonna actually put I'm gonna sweeten the deal here. If anybody has anything that they can add to the conversation here, I'll bless them for today. I'll throw you a bless just to the first person that wants to chime in here. And if nobody has anything, again, totally fine. All right, we'll get them next time. I'm going to keep throwing that bless out there. We'll find a topic where people want to jump in. Okay, so I'm gonna jump in here with sort of a new segment. I thought it would be high value to members to just kind of hear the field reports that have been published in the past week. Sometimes there's a lot of them. Sometimes you see the ping and you just forget and you don't double back, and then something ends up cooking. But it's a great resource. We have fantastic writers and stuff. So I just want to give a few shout outs for the field reports from the past 7 days. So I'm going to run through these really quickly. First, we've got the JD Weekly Preview. This is a daily calendar that summarizes mints, time-sensitive things, white or airdrop sort of steps that you have to take that expire, other various opportunities. It's very organized. It's updated regularly. And it's a fantastic resource. So thank you, JD. We also had one from Jake and Bake himself. This one is Twitter follows. It's a curated list of sharp people on Twitter that you can follow. He also put in explanations on what their niches and personalities are like. This is a fantastic starting point if you want to follow EQ Poppy's advice. He actually did a field report about making an algo account. It's just a separate Twitter account that you have so that you're not clogging up your timeline. When you want alpha instead of memes, you can kind of switch between those. So great field report from Jake on the Twitter follows. We also had Ross Boss. He dropped Simplicity of Buying the Dip. This is a very personal and human field report from Ross covering his experiences trading shitcoins, the emotions that go into it, and a very simple way to find better entries on your trades. So shout out Ross Boss, level-headed king. Silva did a blast office hour notes. These are kind of similar to what brought me into MVHQ in the first place. I used to rely on Jake and Bake's Top Shot office hour notes because I didn't want to sit through the whole interview. So this is that. It's a great bite-sized summary of what we talked about with Pac-Man. Of course, if you do want to hear the full thing, that's up in video content. You can throw that bad boy on 2x speed and get through it in about 30 minutes. And then the last one is Aslo. He actually dropped 2. So this is 2 volumes of his February field report. And oh boy, these are wild. These are basically Aslo opening his whole ass brain and welcoming you inside, sharing his micro and macro plays. They're super in depth. They have entire paragraph on paragraph explanations for his stances, narratives that are going on in the space and specific projects, all of that. So great work. It's basically a mini novel that he's put out twice now in the month. So Aslo, thank you, sir. I see in the audience, is there anything that you'd want to add on to that or want to speak on? No pressure if not.
No, I mean, I think working off what you and Jake were talking about right now, it's just a positive trend right now in the market, right? So I'm not going to short that first and foremost. Not that I'm the expert swing trader, but I'm not going to short that. Number 2 is I'm just going to work with that. I think the hardest thing to solve right now is timing, because everybody wants to time everything absolutely perfectly. And so I feel like knowing in advance that you're not going to time everything perfectly may make it a little bit more comfortable, to be honest with you, right? So like Jake was saying, we've seen rotations. We didn't know that the market was going to run this fast last week, right? We had a sense, like I mentioned in the first report, that February is historically a good month and we think it's statistically significant. But we didn't know it was going to run right away by any means. At least I didn't. Maybe Jake, who's always on top of it, did, but I didn't. And so when that happens, all of a sudden everything rotated out, right? In some cases, right? So we saw dips, across NFTs, across, several areas basically, right? So in my mind, it's impossible to time everything. It's literally impossible. So now that we know that the market's running, I think we could just forecast that there's going to be rotations that exist. I prefer to, I guess the way that I think about this is allocating some portion of my portfolio to front running, for lack of a better description, knowing that I may not time it perfectly well. And that'll be a mix of things. So, one thing I didn't talk about in the report, actually, that I think is interesting, which is I'm not a big fan of Tensor's price lock product. The reason is I think it's like going into a casino. I think it's just going to be a huge house edge. However, I think in a situation like this, where you see the market starting to push up very aggressively, taking some flyers on a couple select price locks could be good risk reward, in my opinion. Just the downside is if you time it wrong, like I did last week, I missed some of them. It just ate my soul, and it was that simple, to be honest with you. But I like allocating a small portion to that, because if you get it right, it pays off disproportionately. So that's what I'd kind of say. But I think it's for anybody who's patient on NFTs and is getting a little bit frustrated, it will rotate back. Right now, just the focus is on core crypto, it seems like. One other note that is worth making. I do have one other note, which is I'm looking at the chart of coin in the background as well. If you pull out to the macro on coin, meaning Coinbase in this case, its historical high is like 350, 400, and that was in last cycle, right? When crypto, was not as high as hopefully it'll be this cycle as well. And right now it's sitting at 149. It's ticked up over the past X months, I would say, or weeks. but it's not very, very high. So, not to sound too boomerish here when I say this, but it's a pretty good indicator, and also maybe a pretty good opportunity for good risk reward, I would say as well, would be Coinbase. So that's all.
All right, you are the man, dude. Yeah, thank you. Came with some alpha as well. Yeah, man, we appreciate. I appreciate you jumping up here and talking to. I went ahead and threw you a bless in chat. And just another reminder to everybody else, you guys get a bless every 24 hours. These are valuable. They help determine MVP and also payouts at the end of the month. So if you haven't blessed, go ahead and bless somebody. Do it every day. And if you're ever at a loss with who you should bless, just pop open that field report section. I mean, here I just listed out 7. So that could be a bless every day of the week for the next week. And the next show we can figure out some more. But make sure to get those blesses in. Aslo, we appreciate you. Appreciate the field reports. The other contributors I mentioned as well, JD, Ross Boss, Silva. Yeah, great work, you guys, on the field reports. We appreciate it. Let's keep them going. One thing Aslo talked about in his field report brief. Oh, sorry, Jake, do you have something real quick?
No, I thought you were going to change the subject. I
was. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so while we have you up here, I thought it was a really good point you made. I was going to bring this up similar too, in that the kind of the rotation of things, like how it goes Bitcoin dominant, like the market kind of swings in a pretty regular pattern like this, where it starts with majors like Bitcoin and then leading the way usually with these kind of pumps, and then these other ones following, kind of like trickle down effect, if you will, where it goes like Bitcoin and then ETH, and probably going to be now this cycle, at least with Sol, with how much strength it's shown, then kind of trickling down more into like altcoins, shitcoins, NFTs, that type of stuff, until we get to kind of like a shitcoin meta, and then things kind of reset. I feel like we see this a lot. It's kind of like a psychological thing where people are just kind of like waiting to get more confident on things, and when Bitcoin pumps a lot, then that creates confidence across the board. Then they start kind of going over these alts, and then confidence continues to increase, and then they start like gambling, I guess farther and farther down the risk spectrum to NFTs and shitcoins and stuff. And then when we see like shitcoin season happen, and like there's random shit that's so dumb, that's going crazy, and like these free NFTs that are like everything you mint is doing well, then we kind of see like a bit of froth and FOMO, and it's usually around that time is when we get a bit of a reset. And that doesn't always mean it's going to be like over and we enter the bear, but it's kind of like we need to reset our risk tolerances to get more into a healthy state. So I thought that was a really good shout out that you had when you touched on that in the field report. I don't know if you had anything else on that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, man. I mean, I think the funny way I say it is like, what's been hot in the past that's like suspiciously quiet lately, right? And 2 examples of that. Again, I'm limited because I don't touch everything, but like Sol NFTs have been like suspiciously quiet lately after being so hot for a while, and that feels a little bit off. And even ETH NFTs especially, like there's so much of this narrative that's like pushing totally away from, yeah, you also, Rick, sorry, I figured you'd say that. There's so much of this narrative pushing away from ETH NFTs, which feels disproportionate. Like it just doesn't make sense, and we're starting to see those kind of like initial shoots kind of sprout up with that kind of list that I shared in the field report. Wherever there's something like that doesn't make sense, I kind of immediately put my eye on it and say, what is going on here? There's not enough attention here, which then can create some arbitrage by hopefully front running a little bit too. So I cautiously think and hope that we're going to see some of that rotation soon, in Sol certainly, but probably in other areas too. Except that if you remember back like a couple of years, I wrote some reports about like the NFT version of this rotation as well. And you need leaders that exist, right? And so the leaders are the combination of like the big ones, right? The Mad Lads, that kind of a thing, and Sol. And you need some innovation as well, which may be what you were talking about with Marms, Jake, as well. And I think that's the kind of storm that gets it going. And I think we might see that, right? I think with Mad Lads now getting the wormhole drop, which will then push up the price of it and kind of create more hype and buzz, and then Marms coming in and POW coming in and 404s and so on and so forth, that might create the storm that we want to be able to get that push finally in NFTs, where I know everyone's been a little bit frustrated with that lately. So
I'd love to chime in this conversation, Aslo and Jake, if I'm able to.
Of course, yeah.
Appreciate it. First and foremost, I just wanted to shout out my boy Lizard Capital, fellow MVHQ member and just a really smart trader. I always really like his analysis, so just want to first and foremost shout out. He's a really good Twitter follow. He's also on Warpcast now, Joe Rogan on Warpcast. He just a couple days ago put out a pretty interesting dashboard or just some data that's showing that, even though the number of users for trading on Bitcoin and Uniswap, and I believe Jupiter is like the big one that's gaining market share, has been going up a lot. There haven't been new wallets coming into NFTs. So just kind of piggybacking off what Aslo's saying, it's interesting to see that there's definitely flow coming back into crypto, but not yet the NFT space. So just wanted to shout that out first and foremost. I thought that his posts were super interesting, so I'm sure some traders in here can get some insight. But I also wanted to just ask you, Jake, since you've been through a few crypto cycles, you've seen when ETH and NFTs moved in tandem, you've seen when they move inversely. When you see something like Bitcoin ripping, do you ever use that as a risk off for some of your other plays? Do you wait until the water settles? Or do you sort of take the Aslo approach of more front running and getting ready for that rotation?
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. I think, when stuff rips, I feel like Bitcoin, I probably more so see it as like a hold, wait and see approach, because I know, like we kind of talked about, with this rotation of like risk tolerance from, it starts with Bitcoin and then it trickles down a bit. I think, that can happen quick in some cases. It kind of depends on the asset, like especially if it's like an altcoin like Sol or something. I would expect like that to follow pretty quickly. Whereas like things more risk off like NFTs, that could be a little bit delayed. And also, I think it also depends on like where we are in the cycle too. Like especially like if we were kind of later in the cycle and Bitcoin ripped, and there was already like a lot of retail in, there's already a lot of retail like in the space, I would probably be a little more risk off with NFTs, for instance. Just thinking that, it's already pumped a good amount, like the NFT space. There's already people here. They're probably going to take profit a bit on NFTs in order to switch into crypto that's also pumping. Whereas if it's something like Bitcoin's ripping initially, kind of like in this phase, especially, I see it more as, okay, like retail's not really here yet. Like you just mentioned, with how many wallets are still not really coming over to the NFT space and trading NFTs. But I think soon, like I mentioned earlier in, with Bitcoin pumping, getting that 50K mark, the psychological mark, I think that is going to attract people, and naturally, like a lot of people saw, I think they're going to kind of trickle in on the risk spectrum as well. People saw like last bull market, NFTs popped off, all these shit coins popped off, right? That's kind of like if crypto's pumping again, like I think a lot of people are going to naturally make that comparison, like, oh, I need to like get back into these NFTs and like these crypto and stuff and see what's hot and like get back into it if I'm going to get back into the game and like try to capture these gains again. Like if I miss out on Bitcoin, I'm going to go for these other ones, right? So I think the fact that we are earlier in the cycle makes me more confident to hold these kind of other assets outside of like the main majors when the majors do rip, because I think it attracts attention. Whereas if we are later in the cycle, the attention's already there, and that might not be as bullish of a signal. But I think it's going to come soon for these other risk assets. It's kind of like it might be a waiting game, and I don't really want to like try and play. You definitely could like try to play the timing thing, but a lot of these, especially if I'm very bullish on that specific asset, like I'm not going to try and like sell it off in hopes to get like a 20% better entry. I'm probably just going to hold. Maybe it dips a little bit, but in basically in the hope that the attention's going to shift back to the market that I'm in, whatever that is, the NFT or the shitter, and hope that these a lot of retail comes in and pumps price. That's kind of where I'm at the current stage of things.
Yeah, just awesome. Building on top of that, Ross. I mean, I 1,000,000% agree with what Jake is saying there. There's like a little bit of subtext in there too, which is we're as much as we try to always be at our computers 100% of the time, we can't be at our computers 100% of the time, right? So if the choice is between like maybe getting an entry, I think the safer play would be to just rotate out at some point and then kind of sit and then make your next decision in theory. But I think Jake's point about like the timing of the cycle is really crucial. And given the timing of the cycle and given the fact that we can't sit at our computers always, I want my capital at work. So even if that means I have to front run and I'm a little bit early on some things, and it sits for like a week or something, I'm more okay with that with a limited downside than missing what I knew was a good thesis to begin with because I wanted to just time it perfectly and I didn't happen to be on my computer at the right time, for instance, because there's no automation or limit orders that exist for an NFT or that kind of a thing.
I really appreciate that. Yeah. And, I want to bring this up. It might be a little bit controversial, not really controversial, but I'd love to talk about the losers and when to cut, just given that, it's something that we don't talk about a ton in the space. I think, especially on Twitter, people are super quick to like show off, hey, I made a 5X, a 3X. But when we have this sentiment, obviously the market is super bullish right now. And we've seen just Bitcoin, Ethereum, some NFTs just explode upwards. If you are buying here, and let's say we do get that pullback, when do you guys as traders make that determination of this one's going to come back, I'm going to buy the dip and continue to scale into it versus, hey, I need to reevaluate and get out of this position? I'm really curious what you guys think. Obviously, it's pretty lockstep with what my field report was about a couple of days ago, just about buying that dip. But I'm really curious if you guys have any thoughts on that when you're entering these trades, what your consideration for the downside might be.
Jake, you going on that one? Where you want me to go?
Oh, you good.
I'll try. I'm not the best dip timer, Ross. You're a far better dip timer than I am. I'll be the first to admit that. So, you take an example yesterday, like, again, only because I'm focused on it. I'm not trying to skew towards it, but it's just fresh in mind. Like when Nuts dipped last night, nothing had changed in the thesis, and the macro still looked strong enough at that point, right? I didn't buy because I have some anyway, right? I had enough, basically. But I think my strategy would have been to DCA at that point had I wanted more. And that's what I would have done. And Ross would have been sitting there laughing and timing the dip even better than what I could have done. And you're on your way at that point, right? I think it really more comes down to is either the macro off, and the macro, I mean like all pieces, right, off, or has something changed in the project that makes me uncomfortable with it? And if no to both, then it's just normal course of action, right? Normal cycles until something changes at that point. And so sometimes, though, I will say that creates something that's like quite painful. Like yesterday was painful, for instance, in this example. I'm trying to get better though at cutting losses on things. We're in an upward trend right now, so something material would have to change in the macro or in a project to probably cut losses on it. Else, I think I would more average down and DC it down than cut the loss.
Love it, dude. That's definitely great insight. And yeah, I mean, that's something that I was trying to touch on in the field report is that the initial sizing is so important, especially if you're buying in a time. And I think you guys are both right on the money where there's such clear signs of strength that it doesn't always make sense to wait for that 20% pullback. And in terms of timing the dip, like you're saying, Aslo, like I'm definitely no magician or wizard at that. The absolute key that I could suggest to anyone who wants to is just scaling into your position. So, when you're saying, oh, it hurts and it's painful, that's something that I've gone through just so many times throughout the cycles where it's like down 20 or 30% a day. And I'm just at home reeling like, oh my God, do I really want to throw more cash at this? It's going to hurt if it continues going lower. That's sort of a telltale sign that it might be overinvested. So definitely just something that I've been working on personally is just getting that sizing right. Just feeling comfortable where I don't have it all in immediately at the top, because if it does, go down, I want to be excited to buy that dip. But I love your point about the thesis staying intact. And I feel the exact same way. If there's a project that you really believe in and you think the thesis is there, definitely give it some time to play out. If the thesis changes and your fundamental grounds for investing in the first place changes, sometimes you just got to suck it up and take the loss. I mean, we're all traders, right? Like we've all taken big losses or small losses along the way. So I think as long as you're monitoring internally with yourself, where are these emotions coming from? Is the logic behind the trade still there? Definitely makes sense to buy the dip, but if not, something to reevaluate. But I appreciate the conversation with you both. Always love Wake and Jake.
Yeah, thank you, Ross. Excellent additions, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, likewise. Great conversation starters and excellent Alpha. Sweet. Yeah, I know we're coming up on the hour. I didn't have really anything else. I think Jake, I think you have a couple things you want to go over, but I'll go ahead and just pass the baton to you, man. Just whatever you want to talk about next here.
I was going to touch on the Solana outage, but then I realized I don't really have much to touch on from that. Just that it's a notable event that happened last week. It was down for 5 hours. I thought it was notable that I guess the notable thing was that the price didn't really go. It was like a very brief dip, but then it got eaten up pretty quick. I think it ended up being about flat on the day after his first outage in like a year or whatever it was. I thought it was pretty notable that the market didn't care too much about it, and I thought it was pretty bullish that it didn't dip too much, at least for the price. I don't know. It's also a little worrying, I guess, that it did go down, obviously, and it was down for like quite a while in terms of hours. I don't know. I guess I don't have much analysis besides that little piece. And then one other thing, I guess I did want to touch on ERC 404s again too. I feel like we kind of have to after what a huge week it was. We THC, you mentioned this earlier about like how we talked about them early last week, kind of when it first started, I guess. In Pandora, I went back and looked. Pandora was about 4K when we were talking on the show, and it when we went through it, it ended up reaching much higher than that. It got up to 33K last week, and it's still sitting at about, I think, close to 20K right now, on a little bit of a dip from its highs, but still sitting pretty nicely. I guess we saw a lot of other things, other 404 related stuff popping off in the contracts. I think Cell was one of the biggest ones, the Cellmates. And then there's a bunch of other little ones that people were spinning up, a lot of rugs that happened. Unfortunately, that just happens. Some potion ones. I don't even know what the other ones are, honestly. Check the shitcoin trading chat. Those people are all on top of it. They've been trading them like crazy. I think there's been some really nice wins, which is awesome to see. But just for like a quick recap on ERC 404, if you know what it is, it's a new token standard on Ethereum, and it's basically like a combo of NFTs and shitcoins combined, combo of the ERC 721 and then the ERC 20s. Basically, it's oh shoot, I thought I had a thread linked, but I don't. It's basically like it's NFTs that can be fractionalized, and also listed as tradable in fractions and also tradable as a whole. So it's almost like say like 1 unit of an NFT is like 100, and if you have less than 100 of these units of whatever it is, then you don't have the NFT anymore. But if you have more than 100, then you have the NFT. It's kind of hard to explain. I'm not doing a good job on it here. Let me link a thread just in case you guys have not looked into this yet. Let me drop the thread here in the Voice Hangout chat by Saigar, who's really good dev, influencer, like the ERC 721A for Zuki and everything. He explains it pretty well there. But anyway, I just wanted to give like a quick take on it. In my eyes, I think I did it a little bit in chat earlier, but I kind of wanted to, at least a couple of days ago, but I kind of want to go over it again. Where I kind of think it's important. I think this new standard is going to be very valuable in a lot of ways going forward. I think something like Pandora, which is the first one that implemented it, will probably do very well as it being like the leader of a new standard. Kind of like D's Nuts is leader of its own standard, even though we haven't really seen other projects use D's Nuts standard yet. It's very similar to that one. But I know that's the plan, is that they're going to kind of have a launch pad for projects. But in a similar vein, Pandora is the first one, right, of the standard, and usually the tokens of the first tokens of a new standard do pretty well and can do so into the future, kind of like Ordi did for BRC20, right? It's the first one of that. It continues to do really well, insane multiples from when it started. I think Pandora has a chance to do that too, especially if the team is active and continuing to implement new things and continuing to, build a community around it. I think if you monitor those things, I think, yes, Pandora can do well. That being said, like all these offshoots, I think there's a ton of them this past week. We saw a lot of speculation going on for it. I think that's probably largely done for the most part, at least in the short term. The market turns its head very quickly. It rotates very quickly in the space. Attention rotates very quickly in the space. And I think, we kind of it's kind of had its moment to shine, and now people are probably looking elsewhere. Yes, there's going to be some, outliers to that, of course, that'll do well. But I think in general, I guess my take is that the main ones, this Pandora one, I think Cell is another one that's interesting. They kind of have like an offshoot of the standard that's maybe a little bit like a better version of it. The Cellmates, those ones might do good too, going forward into the long term. But these other ones probably aren't going to do that great if it's just a very not well thought through thing. But in general, again, I did say I like this standard. I think teams who really think through how to utilize the standard for their own project and how to build something using the standard in a thoughtful way are going to do really well. But I don't think that's something that's going to happen instantly. Like since the standard just came out like a week and a half ago or whatever, I think it's probably going to take a little bit of time. But it is something I would look out for. Teams who are kind of using the standard in a novel way that really makes sense to the market, I think that those are projects you want to look out for. In putting this standard, and I probably wouldn't go crazy on like these new shitters that are popping up that are saying like they're the first whatever of using for ERC 404. I think that trend has been largely exhausted in my opinion. If anyone has any other takes on ERC 404, if you disagree with me, whatever, I'd love to hear other takes too. I know this has been the hot topic here in the past week.
Yeah, agreed. I'd love to hear if anybody else has thoughts. I just wanted to say I appreciate the follow-up on that. I know that your thesis from last week is pretty much unchanged, but we did get, new information, obviously the market response. You kind of predicted all the things you're saying now, sort of the attention game, the derivatives, just, sort of establishing itself as a token standard, and it played out pretty much as you described. So, I appreciate you circling back and then just sort of updating your take just with the new information that we've got since then. But yeah, I'm happy to take a pause here. And if anybody wants to talk about Pandora or 404 before we wrap things up, we'll give them the floor for that. Gonna keep trying. You guys can't stop. One of these days, somebody's gonna be like, unmute and be like, actually, here's a whole thesis that I wrote over the weekend. We're going to keep fishing for it. All good. One more thing that happened just while we were doing the show. It's kind of related. So there's kind of a little bit of a correlation between the 404 and D's Nuts, because D's Nuts is like a very similar token structure or contract structure over on Solana. Elon actually tweeted D's Nuts image during the show. So this was earlier, closer to when we started the show. But yeah, it's just like a picture of Mickey Mouse's head flipped upside down. It looks like testicles. Pretty interesting. And then we did see some big old green candle on D's Nuts. Probably not correlated if I had to guess, but obviously people are going to make their assumptions. But looks like D's Nuts are making some moves during the show, which is pretty interesting. Sorry,
I was going to say I think it's correlated, but the rise. I'd be even more bullish if shortly afterwards news came out on the project developing that kind of a thing. This is good. It's always helpful to get more attention on this, but really looking forward to the actual development of the NFT, which I think is coming, and the staking as well. I think those are the key things we're looking for, in my opinion, on that one.
Yeah, well said. Sorry, I should use a different word other than correlated. Obviously, the pump is correlated to the Elon tweet. That was a stupid thing to say. I just mean I don't think that Elon is tweeting about this project. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it would gig us in probably much harder if he tweeted out, like a deck screener link or something like that. But anyway, yeah, I'll kick it back to Jake at the end here just for final words. I just wanted to give some final just reminders we've talked about a lot today. just important stuff for MVHQ. First is that we have the 2 missions that are ending soon. One ends today, one ends tomorrow. Those are Thruster and Galverse. So go do those missions, knock them out. We also have that event tomorrow. It's an AMA with base VC at 3 Eastern. And then the last shout is just get those blesses in. I realized I didn't say how to bless earlier, kind of just assuming everyone knows. But if you don't, you can go to voice hangout chat. You just type /bless. It's going to pop up a little modal. You can type in the user's name, and then it'll ask why you want to bless them. But it's just a way to say thank you to anybody that's either helped you or provided alpha or anything like that. So get those blesses in. They're huge. Jake, anything you want to send us home with?
Pay attention to Marmot on Thursday. Not much else. Thank you all for joining. I don't have anything.
Beautiful.
Appreciate y'all.
Deal. Yeah. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week at the same time on Monday. And we'll continue the conversation here in VC. We're just going to cut the recording here for the show purposes so we can kind of move on with that. But yeah, happy to hear from everybody. How's everybody doing?